Hey wine lovers, welcome to Wineometer Weekly Wine News, episode 6 for March 28th, 2025. I'm Amy.
And I'm Chris. We've got all the news that's fit to sip.
This week, a heartfelt goodbye to wine legend James Labie, a bold new chapter for Opus One, and the Texas wine scene goes global, with bachelorettes, hayrides, and maybe even Chris's heart involved.
Allegedly.
Plus, we're diving into garlic wine, bone marrow beer, and the most searched white burgundies of 2025. Because who doesn't enjoy a balanced pour? So grab a glass, unless it's still fridge cold. Let that baby warm up, and let's get into it. Okay, I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep and 3 midnight wine tastings. So if I say something completely unhinged today, blame Gina Janik.
Gina Janik, let me guess. You fell into that rabbit hole again?
I did. She's been hosting these midnight tastings live on Instagram at RateMyPair, and they're weirdly calming, like educational ASMR for wine lovers. She's got the whole spin the wheel thing going on. She was tasting this Carnero Chardonnay like we were hanging out and spilling tea. And that's what got me.
You do realize midnight wine content is just the bougie version of doom scrolling, right?
No regrets. Last night she opened a Tobias Glen Chardonnay and said it was a lot of new world in the best way. I felt spiritually cleansed.
I've seen her stuff. She's like if Mr. Rogers had a sommelier daughter, who also happened to low-key radiate French film star energy. There's a vibe.
I need to get up to Seattle and check out the restaurant she's the wine director at, Copine. That latest pairing menu? She put a 2000 Chateau Moussard with chicken fried riz de veau. That's not a wine dinner, that's a flex.
Yeah, I've checked out her pairings. She's not playing safe. Tawny port with foie terrine, gamay with lamb pithiviers. It's like someone gave a sommelier a painter's palette and said, go nuts.
And she still lands it beautifully. It's precise chaos.
Honestly, she had me at the pasta and Friulano.
Moving on.
That's right. Come for the news, stay for Amy's sleep deprivation. Anyway, I know we've covered tariffs before, but here's something new. There are entire containers of wine just sitting in European warehouses, already paid for, just stuck.
Yeah. This Guardian piece dives into what they're calling ghost bottles. Fully paid, ready-to-ship cases that importers can't afford to bring into the US because the new tariff threat would obliterate their margins.
It's like paying for your dream vacation and then finding out the airline now charges triple just to let you board.
One New Jersey importer is holding back over 10,000 cases of European wine that were supposed to hit restaurants this spring. That's millions of dollars tied up. Inventory that might never make it stateside.
And it's not just about cost. These wines were picked for spring menus, rosés, crisp whites, early releases. By the time this gets sorted, that seasonal window might be gone.
Exactly. One Bordeaux shipper called it a complete paralysis of transatlantic commerce. It's not just a wine story, it's a supply chain horror film.
So next time you see a restaurant's wine list looking a little thin this spring, blame geopolitics, not the sommelier.
This next story is one of those that hits you in the gut if you care about wine at all. James Labie. Wine Spectator's longtime Napa bureau chief has passed away at 73 after a short illness.
There's no overstating this. Labie didn't just report on California wine, he defined how people understood it. He gave Napa Valley a voice before it had global recognition. For nearly 4 decades, he was the one telling the world, hey, pay attention, something special is happening here.
He got his start as a journalist in the late 70s, covering local news in Napa. But wine was always calling, and in 1983, he joined Wine Spectator full-time, just as the magazine was transitioning from a small industry paper to a global force.
He helped shape that evolution. Over his career, he reviewed more than 40,000 wines, championed blind tasting, and never shied away from calling out flaws. TCA, Brett, lazy winemaking, he named it even when it came from big, powerful wineries.
But he wasn't just a critic. He was a champion of potential. Winemakers like Thomas Rivers Brown credit Labie for seeing their work before the industry did. He helped launch careers just by trusting his palate and his gut.
Chuck Wagner from Caymus said it best. Labie wasn't driven by ego or politics. He was honest. And in a world that can sometimes be, well, let's say market-influenced, that kind of integrity was rare.
He also wrote 4 books, won a James Beard Award, and introduced countless people to wine through his deep dives and sharp storytelling. And yet, he stayed grounded surfing, fishing, and staying in Napa long after he retired in 2019.
James Lobby showed us that wine writing could have backbone, that a 100-point scale means nothing without 100% honesty behind it.
Raise a glass to a man who turned a wine store near the beach into a lifelong calling and took California wine along for the ride.
Here's to James Lobby, a critic, a storyteller, and a true steward of the vine.
Okay, shifting from legacy to what's next. Opus One just announced Megan Zobek as their new director of winemaking.
That sound you hear is Bordeaux purists clutching their pearls.
Have you ever actually been to the Opus One estate?
Have I been? Amy. I once did a vertical tasting there that was so structured, I felt like I was defending a dissertation in a temple.
For those non-wine nerds, vertical tasting means trying different vintages of the same wine, right?
Exactly. Same wine, same producer, different years. It's how you taste time. One glass shows you sunshine, another shows drought, another says, "Remember that frost in 2011? It's like speed dating with the vineyard's past lives.
That's kind of poetic.
Thank you. Now back to the estate. It smells like quiet wealth. The driveway alone is more symmetrical than most people's lives. You're handed a glass of their 2010 and escorted into this circular tasting salon like you're being inducted into the Illuminati.
All right, we get it. You peaked.
I'm just saying, it's not the kind of place you expect a Broncos exec turned natural wine rebel to take the reins, and yet, I'm intrigued.
Same. Megan Zobek isn't just bringing winemaking chops, she's bringing a whole new lens. From Screaming Eagle to Burgess, she's carved her own path.
She's the anti-Nepo hire, which I respect. No vineyard dynasty behind her, just brains, talent, and probably a great spreadsheet game.
And she's one of the few women to ever lead winemaking at this level in Napa. Iconic.
If Opus One starts doing native yeast ferments and skipping oak, we'll know she's made herself at home.
Let's give her time. And let's keep Chris away from the driveway.
It is a perfect ellipse.
Next story, let's talk Texas. Because apparently, no matter what kind of wine you like, there's now a Texas bottle that'll hit the spot.
Bold claim. I've had Texas wines that tasted like they were aged in the back of a pickup during August.
And yet, the Texas Wine and Grape Growers Association just wrapped their annual conference, and the message was clear. Varietal diversity, winemaking talent, and quality across the board are all trending way up.
I'll admit it, Texas is finally figuring out what works. Tempranillo, Tannat, Mourvedre, these heat-loving grapes are thriving. I've had a few hill country bottles that actually made me pause mid-sarcasm.
And you know who else noticed? James. Freaking. Suckling.
Wait, James 98 points for breathing suckling?
There he won. He just published a tasting report on Texas wines, called them impressive and surprising, rated 20 wines 90 points or higher.
Okay, either Texas wine has gotten shockingly good, or suckling fell under the Fredericksburg spell and can't escape.
Honestly, Fredericksburg is a whole thing. Tasting rooms, boutique hotels, honky-tonk rosé culture, and just enough German roots to justify bratwurst with your Blaufränkisch.
I actually took a day trip out there once while I was in Austin, went on a date, thought it would be chill, maybe a few tastings, some hilltop views.
And?
We ended up on a hayride next to a group of wine tourists from Dubai and two influencers live streaming their third wine slushy. It was eclectic, and I felt like an NPC compared to everyone else.
That's Fredericksburg. Cowboy boots, curated flights, and people from 6 time zones deep in a hay wagon.
Still waiting on a Texas sparkling that doesn't have full-on pick-me energy, but I'm open to being proven wrong.
You heard it here. Chris went on a wine date and came back with respect. And hay in his shoes.
And a mild sunburn, worth it. Still single, but yeah.
I bet you're adorable in a cowboy hat.
No comment.
All right, quick pause, because if you've ever caught yourself Googling how to move to Portugal at 2 a.m. after reading the news, this one's for you.
Or if you've ever stared at your 4th rent increase and thought, what if I just didn't?
Exactly. That's where Digital Nomad Bootcamp comes in. It's an online course that shows you how to take your career remote and move abroad without blowing up your life or your bank account.
It's designed for people who want options, like working from a cafe in Lisbon, a vineyard in Tuscany, or literally anywhere with Wi-Fi and fewer unhinged headlines.
The course breaks down everything. how to land remote work, set up passive income, handle international taxes, and find countries that actually want you to live there.
I took one look at the tax savings spreadsheet and nearly cried. In a good way.
So if you've ever fantasized about leaving the chaos behind and building a new life somewhere a little more rosé-friendly, head to digitalnomadbootcamp.school and check it out.
Worst case, you learn a ton. Best case, you're sipping Albarino on a balcony in Spain wondering why you didn't do this sooner.
Digital Nomad Bootcamp. It's not an escape, it's an upgrade.
Now back to the wine and the coping.
All right, back to the wine news, and we're going from Texas hayrides to Burgundy royalty. Wine Searcher just dropped their list of the most wanted white Burgundies of 2025, and let's just say your credit card might break a sweat.
We're talking Domaine Leflaive, Coche d'Ury, and yes, DRC Montrachet, the white whales of the wine world.
Top bottles are going for thousands, the kind of wines that get Googled more than they get opened.
They're less what's for dinner and more what will I sell to pay for this. Also, if you're buying DRC Montrachet, please adopt me.
But here's the interesting bit. The most wanted list isn't just about collectors flexing. These wines are cultural icons. Coche d'Ury's Meursault? Literal legend status.
It's like the Beyoncé of white wine. Everyone talks about it. Few have actually been in the same room with it.
And even if you can't afford these, it's fun to see what's influencing trends. Minerality, precision, oak restraint. These are the wines that quietly shape what sommeliers start chasing next.
Plus, if you want the vibe without the Venmo trauma, find a good Saint-Aubin or a lesser-known Pouligny producer. There are echoes of greatness for a fraction of the price.
Exactly. Drink like royalty on a reality TV budget.
Or just scroll and fantasize. That counts too.
All right, now on to hot takes and trends. This week, we're diving into a trend that's either genius or a cry for help.
Experimental booze, aka, what if this didn't need to exist but someone fermented it anyway?
The Urban List put together a roundup of some of the weirdest drinks out there right now. Highlights include bone marrow beer, garlic wine, and my personal nightmare ramen-infused IPA.
Who hurt you, craft brewers? Like, were hops too mainstream?
There's also a blue cheese-infused vodka. That's not a cocktail, that's a dare.
I'm sorry, but if your drink has mouthfeel from the cheese, you need to sit in a dark room and reevaluate.
But some of these are low-key brilliant, like the porcini mushroom liqueur. Earthy, savory, would probably kill in a cocktail with Amaro.
Okay, I'd try that, but only if it came with a side of risotto and no eye contact.
There's also a garlic wine from New Zealand. Not gonna lie, part of me is curious.
Garlic belongs in dinner, not in my glass. I want notes of blackberry, not vampire repellent.
Fair. But admit it, you'd try at least 3 of these just for the plot.
Maybe, but I'd lie about it afterward.
So if you see fermented brisket stout on a tap list near you, you're welcome.
And also, we're sorry.
All right, time for the DM of the week from our account wine.o.meter at Instagram. The question is, how cold should I actually be serving white wine? Fridge cold, slightly chilled? Help!
Ah yes, the age-old debate between I want to taste the wine and I want it to feel like Topo Chico.
Okay, but fridge cold is totally fine for something like a Sauvignon Blanc or a bubbly. Clean, crisp, refreshing. What's the issue?
The issue is you're committing flavor homicide. Ice-cold whites mute aroma, texture, and nuance. You're basically drinking ghost wine.
Not everyone is looking to dissect the inner monologue of their Albarino, Chris. Some people just want it to be refreshing.
Fine. But if you're pulling a Burgundy Blanc or a richer Chardonnay straight from a 38-degree fridge, you're doing it dirty. That wine worked hard. Give it room to speak.
I do agree with that. Bigger, more textured whites absolutely deserve a little warm-up. The sweet spot for most whites is somewhere between 45 and 55 degrees.
So here's the rule of thumb. Chill it, but don't ice it into submission. Pull it from the fridge 15 minutes before pouring, or better yet, use a wine fridge like an adult.
Also, if you're drinking it too cold and wondering why it tastes like nothing, congrats, you've just numbed your taste buds.
And if you're microwaving your Montrachet to wake it up, we can't help you.
Oof. Don't give anyone that idea.
Got your own wine question? DM us anytime at wine.o.meter on Instagram. You might just make the next episode.
And we promise, if it's a temperature question, we'll fight about it again, I'm sure. All right, that wraps up this week's Wine-O-Meter Weekly Wine News. From Burgundy Dreams to Fredericksburg hayrides.
Still picking straw out of my boots, by the way.
If you're loving the pod, give us a follow, share it with your wine group chat, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening.
And DM us your weird pairings, wineicks, or hot takes on what to serve with mashed potatoes. We're at wine.o.meter on Instagram.
We might roast you, but we'll do it with love and a great wine suggestion.
Until next week, drink something bold, or at least something better than that garlic wine.
See you next time.
Wine-O-Meter Weekly Wine News is a DCG Arts production.
What if I knew a way for you to work remotely on a beach in Thailand, a rooftop in Barcelona, or a cafe in Paris? Visit digitalnomadbootcamp.school to learn how to land remote jobs, qualify in another country as a digital nomad, and use AI to work less while earning more. This streamlined course is perfect for content creators, entrepreneurs, and freelancers. Remote work and financial freedom is one click away. Visit digitalnomadbootcamp.school to enroll today.